What did you want to do specifically with Halloween 2, and how did you want to make it different from the original Halloween 2?
I mean, it has nothing to do with the original Halloween 2. I can't even remember what that movie is like. Yeah, the whole movie takes place in a hospital, and a girl gets killed in a hot tub, and it's all this silly stuff like that. Ours has a brief hospital scene at the beginning because it picks up immediately after the last film, so yeah, I had to resolve what happens to everybody. But what I really wanted to do is delve into the lives of the people affected by what happened in the first film, whether it's Laurie Strode or Dr. Loomis, and the fact that this sort of thing called Michael Myers is hanging over their heads. And just her, it was kind of like Laurie Strode's descent into madness after finding out she's the sister of the guy who butchered everybody she knows. So.
Okay, and the look of Michael is kind of different in this one than what we've seen. How did you guys come up with a whole new look for him this time out?
Well, I thought that, I always have a different way I want to see Michael. He would always, I think am I the only director that's done 2 Halloween films in a row? I think so. Usually it's different people. Yeah. So I wanted to continue on. My Michael is always ragged and gets more ragged because I figure he just, he's living out on I thought, what's more interesting than Michael Myers is existing out there in the world. It's just that you don't recognize him because nobody knows what he looks like, really. It's not like they have photographs of him, even of him with the mask, because he popped up, killed people, and disappeared. And I remember hearing back in the 80s, during the Reagan years when they were closing down mental hospitals, just dumping the patients onto the street. So you see these crazy people lying by garbage cans that could be complete psychotics. And I thought, well, it's kind of interesting that Michael Myers is sort of like living out there in the world. That's why he's like this kind of like big bearded guy. I mean, you never really see him that good, but he's kind of like, looks like this mountain man living off. And then Halloween comes and it's sort of like light bulb goes off in his brain,
Well, that's an interesting thing for me is that I always wonder what these guys, the iconic monsters, are doing sometimes on their off time. Right. And I heard this movie kind of goes into that a little bit about what exactly he's kind of doing, as you say, out on the streets and how he lives his day.
Yeah, we don't really go into it and show it because it would be probably, but we show enough where you go, oh, I get it. He's sort of out there living on the fringes because, when you're out in rural areas, you could go, wow, you could really just live out here in the woods if you were that type of person. You just fall off the radar. You become like a non-person, And that's what he is. He's just out there, and his look has changed, and his whole vibe has sort of changed some, so that he's basically you can hide in plain sight.
I don't think I ever looked at that poster till right now. He's grabbing some hair right there. It's kind of cool.
I don't know whose hair that is.
Now, for the fans, can you talk about some of the kills we're going to see? I mean, can you kind of set up some of the scenarios without giving too much away?
Yeah, I mean, the killing in this movie I wanted it to be very real because obviously in a lot of these movies, the Friday the 13th type movies, the killings get very big and they get very broad and they're meant to get a big like woohoo out of the audience, but they're pretty goofy. Whereas for me, a memorable killing is the scene in like American History X where he tells the guy to bite the curb and then he kicks the back of his head. That I remember. I don't remember anything from any Friday the 13th movie. So for me, it's like making it like that. Making it where you're caught up in the thing and the brutality happens and you're like, that is disgusting, but in a real life way. Not in like, ooh, that's so gross.
Well, do you see some of the other current horror films and think that the humor is kind of misplaced and that you didn't kind of want to have that sort of humor?
I didn't want to have that sort of humor. This movie's very dark and very humorless all the way through because people are always like, oh, you got to have humor to balance the horror. Then I go, wait a minute. There's nothing funny in The Exorcist. There's nothing funny in Silence of the Lambs or The Shining. And when you list like, these are the greatest horror movies ever made, I'm like, who made up that rule? That doesn't seem to apply to all the movies you just said were the greatest horror movies ever made. They seem to only apply to this pile of crap over here that nobody likes. So for this, there's really no humor. There's some lighter moments with Dr. Loomis because he's sort of living a parallel universe. Laurie Strode and those other people are, they're lower class, middle, they're living their lives trying to put together. And he's sort of got this newfound celebrity where there's some funny bits, but it plays as real, okay. not as like humor that you're supposed to.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up just for a sec, but I want to ask you one more question about Tyrannosaurus Rex. This has been on the internet for a while. Can you kind of tell me where that is in development and exactly what's going on with that?
Tyrannosaurus Rex was one of those things that got announced way too early, and I hate when that happens. I try not to announce anything till I'm ready to do it, because then people keep asking and asking, and it seems like, what's happening? But I have an album coming out that I'm going to tour, and then that is the next project I want to get going. this, it would have been next, but this got in the way. So.
Well, what are you doing with your album? I didn't even know you had an album coming out.
Yeah, I finished an album before I made this movie. It's been sitting on a shelf for about 6 months, so we're gonna pull that off, put it out.
Oh, so you're gonna go on tour?
We hit the road in October, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks so much for talking to us for a few minutes.
It
was great seeing you again.
Good to see you.